Hello and welcome back to the Reinfused podcast. The thing I do when I haven't had time to make videos. I guess housekeeping. There will be more videos. It's just real life is interfering quite a lot with that process at the moment. But I've literally got the machine that I'm trying to make a video on the desk right in front of me. The script is written. I just have to get the time to make it. Hopefully this weekend. Hopefully. And at some point, John Brown of Retrobytes will be on the podcast. I really want to get him on. Great guy, makes great videos, really interesting knowledge of the retro industry. So you really want to get some good chat going with him. It's all entirely on me, 100% my fault that it's not happened. I will get it done. But anyway, in this one, I am going to be talking about Y2K. So, not the most interesting of subjects possibly, but it's one that I had a big involvement in because I'm that old, and it's got one of those things in computing history which has got a kind of a new history layered on top of it as time has gone on, and it's one of those weird logical paradigms where something didn't happen, therefore it was never going to happen. Right. So Y2K, if you don't know. There was the way that we used to store dates to save space, save a few bytes, was we stored them with two numbers as the year. The problem being that as soon as it hit the year 2000, that meant that year would be 00, which would of course cause all kinds of issues with machines that were interpreting that date and trying to make calculations based on it. And so there was a big drive to either fix software so they understood that anything that was 00 wasn't really the 1900s, or to make it so that all these programs started storing 4 numbers as the year, which is of course the correct fix. It kind of depended on money and some of the resources available. Some of these machines are ancient, and adding 2 extra numbers to a field was not easy and not entirely possible always. So it was a big thing, and at the time the papers did make a huge deal of it, and they said planes would fall from the sky and all sorts of stuff. That was it was slightly overblown, but it was overblown for a reason, which was let's be honest, it was overblown by the papers because they wanted to sell papers. But the reason why everyone was getting excited was because it was going to cause major issue. I mean, I was a COBOL developer, and we were very heavily in demand at that time, and definitely I worked in transport, I worked in finance, I worked on all sorts of things, and there were a lot of systems that were going to fail. Banking systems especially were definitely going to have issues, and it was not going to be a small problem. It was going to be a very big problem, which would have caused a lot of issues for a lot of people. Now, the banking, I would say, a connected adjunct, the banking people especially were really bad at this, and most of the projects were started quite late in the day, which I would have to say meant that we charged them a lot of money because we were being called in with just a few months to fix a lot of stuff. So, and for all the people that were coming to do this thing, hey, that never happened, therefore it was completely overblown and was never going to be a problem. No, that's rubbish. It was definitely going to be a problem. The reason it didn't happen was because an awful lot of developers around the world worked an awful lot of hours to fix it. And we were paid well, but we worked really long hours as well. There were times when I wasn't seeing my family at that point for days at a time because I was working on different projects to fix the issue, find issues, all the reports, my God, the endless reports. But and it's I think it's important because it's being glossed over a lot, again, with this new narrative that it was never going to cause a problem. It's glossed over, and the problem with this is that if you start to gloss over history, you don't learn from that history. You don't learn lessons, and this isn't the last time that this kind of thing is going to happen. There are potential issues coming up for Unix-based systems. In a few hundred years and another 1,000 years, etc., etc. And it sounds like that's a really long way off, but it creeps up on you, and obviously not me. I will hopefully be long past from this world when those things pop up, but they are things, and there are different smaller issues that will crop up along the way as well. And if you don't learn from the past, then you make those same mistakes. So I would hope, all those banking systems that took the kind of the cheap way out or the fast way out, I guess, as well, and just did a very quick fix, they're all susceptible to the next time this problem happens. And hopefully they've learnt the lesson this time where they don't leave it till the last minute. Hopefully a lot of them are fixing that problem now. I haven't worked in that industry for 10 years odd. Well, I've worked in fintech, but not in the banking side of fintech for that long. So you hope that they are looking ahead to fix that problem now. They've learned from the past, and they're making sure that that's not going to blindside them when it happens. But you don't know. And again, if we gloss over the history, if we take this view that because something didn't happen, it was never going to happen, then we failed to learn those lessons, and those that do have those same problems again, maybe worse, because in this day and age where we have slop generated by computers with very little fact checking and a kind of almost random algorithmical association of data, which is absolutely polluting the entire of the internet. Maybe next time we get those answers from that, and the answers aren't right, and we make the wrong decisions. Again, this is the reason why we have to learn from these problems. We learn from history, because if you don't learn from history, then you make the same mistakes. Yeah. So I guess if we go into a bit more detail about kind of what happened. So I was working for I was working for a consultancy called DMR at the time, who were heavily into the Y2K. I was also working for myself as well, because there was a lot of work to go around. DMR, what I was mostly doing was looking at people's databases, seeing if there were affected dates that might be an issue, and making lots and lots and lots of reports for different companies. So we weren't doing anything functional, let's say, for those companies. We were just looking and saying, yep, you're affected, no, you're not affected. And I was just doing databases. It was not thrilling. It was not using my technical abilities really at all. I got very bored. Issue when you get bored, of course, is you make mistakes, and certainly there were a couple of mistakes, but we found them. We had checks in place to make sure we didn't miss this stuff. But outside of that, I was also doing stuff with a lot of other people as well. We were kind of sharing jobs around depending on where those jobs were. So we were kind of looking at a lot of this, mostly COBOL. For me, it was mostly COBOL. All these COBOL systems, which have been there since some of them like 70s and 80s. And it was fixing those. And like I said, with the banks especially, it was very last minute. We were doing stuff. I was certainly the last program I fixed was for a bank, and it was the day before. So it was the 30th of December, 1999. So yeah, we got it delivered, and we got it out, and we got it running, and we were able to test it. It was a very long day. I did not see my family until the 2nd of January because we were testing and making sure the systems were running properly, making sure nothing was being missed. We were kind of running a system at the side where we were faking the data just to make sure that the results of the data were the same. I don't know what we would have done if they hadn't been, because we couldn't exactly roll the old system back in again, because we had to have fudged every date that went into it. But yeah, it was an interesting time, and I don't say it wasn't just me; it was countless other developers across the world. I mean, in my little clique of people who were sharing jobs around, there were 50 of us. And that's one, like, a relatively, I would imagine, relatively small clique of developers who just knew each other through the grapevine. Like, some of us have worked at Dex, some of us have worked at IBM and other companies like that, and then we just kind of knew each other, and we just spread the word around. You know, COBOL developers back then, we kind of knew COBOL developers because we were a dying breed, and we were being very phased out, and so you formed these cliques. And they turned out to be very profitable and very useful cliques. Again, I would say, yeah, we had a lot of money. I was too young to earn that much money, and I smacked it very much against the wall. because I wasn't mature. I mean, I imagine if Chinny listens to this, he's going to say I'm not much better now. But which is fair, harsh but fair criticism. Um, but yeah, I wasted a lot of that money. I probably, and I mean, and this is obviously a long time ago. I would have very easily been able to put a sizable amount of money down for a house, with the amount of money that I earned. So yeah, it was it was all kind of wasted. I say wasted. I spent a lot on my family, all of them, not just my wife of the time and children, but also my entire family. So I don't feel like I wasted that money. I feel like I could have used it better, but I feel like I wasted it. Let's put it that way. I did buy a very early like electronics from Japan and stuff. Which, like, weird enough, I'm doing kind of the similar thing, but with retro technology from Japan now. But yeah, but no, it was an interesting time. You were moving from project to project, and like I said, I did a lot of banking stuff because they heavily used COBOL, and so a lot of my stuff was banking. I also did a couple of stockbrokers, a accountant, a couple of transport companies who had I guess logistics software, which weren't actually affected. They were quite well written and quite modern version of COBOL for the time, and so they weren't actually affected. But I went in and we had a look at that and made sure that it was okay, and it was okay. I can't remember how much I charged for that, but there was very much a consultancy fee, which was also not cheap. Yeah, I guess this is what you would call a bit of a kind of a fixed price monopoly. So everyone was kind of having similar prices for fees. We kind of had an idea of what our market would bear, and we would charge similar amounts for that market because, you know, we were deciding who was getting what jobs based on the area. Possibly not entirely noble, but you know, these people that had waited a very long time to fix the problem that people had known about for a very long time. So, and to be fair, if it was a small company, like one of my friends did a small kind of mom and pop bakery, and he did not charge them very much at all, because they, you know, but it stands what the market can bear, right? And he liked them, so he didn't charge them very much at all. And I think I like to think I would have done the same in that position as well, because yeah, it's only really people that got the money to spare you want to gouge. Quite mercenary. I accept that was quite mercenary, but it was the kind of the one time when devs, especially devs that were being made redundant left, right, and centre. Yeah, I mean, similar to now actually. I'm waiting for that to happen to myself. But COBOL developers back then, we were being let go in quite large numbers. I guess for companies that then regretted it quite soon afterwards. It was almost like a revenge, I guess, as well. We did good work, and we solved a lot of problems. A lot of companies would have lost a lot more money had we not done that work. And if they had gone to a consultancy like the one I worked for, but they probably would have been charged quite a lot more. I don't know how much DMR charged. I was fairly lowly employee at the place, so I wasn't privy to that kind of information. But I would imagine it was probably more than what the clique were charging, or any clique was charging around the country. More overheads for a start. I mean, yeah, they would have had to charge a bit more. It was interesting. DMR put quite a lot of their eggs in that basket, actually. A lot of their eggs in the Year 2K basket, which basically meant after the Y2K stuff was all done and dusted, they weren't long around. I can't remember how long it was, because we did whole sorts of things, like we went off and learned Lotus Notes. They sent us to training courses to learn Lotus Notes. I intend to do a video on Lotus Notes, by the way. It was one of the formative parts of my career. I did the EPOS one, which was another formative part of my career. So I will do a Lotus Notes one, if you don't know about Lotus Notes. This kind of enterprise application scaling stuff, which is what Lotus Notes kind of sort of was for its time. And it didn't really turn out that way. I used Lotus Notes for DMR, and I used it briefly for my next job after DMR, and then never used it again. Nobody wanted it. I think it was one of those areas that Microsoft won with Outlook, which is a shame because Lotus Notes was a much more powerful system, like vastly more powerful. I guess Lotus weren't also doing that great either, were they? They got bought by IBM around that time, and yeah, I don't know if IBM really pushed Notes that much. I don't know. I was kind of not around for that part of it. But certainly it just disappeared and never hit my radar again after any job after that. Again, which I do kind of miss it. It's like the old days of mainframes I was talking about. I do miss them. They're not in the slightest bit relevant now, but they were parts of my career, part what led up to where I am now, and they were great systems. Like really for the time, especially very well thought out systems, very reliable, very stable, and Lotus Notes was as well. But anyway, that was a real big digression of what I was talking about. But yeah, so DMR DMR were actually owned by Fujitsu, so they weren't just like a small fly-by-night thing. They were Canadian. They'd been purchased by Fujitsu. We were in the Fujitsu Arndale building in Basingstoke. There were lots of nice little mainframes lying around because they had IBM and Arndale stuff I'd never used, really. IBM I'd used a bit when I was working with IBM, but that was mostly PC stuff there. But I never got to use them. I got to look at them in the warehouse because I'm obviously a nerd. So yeah, so they put all the baskets in that, and that was not possibly the greatest business plan when something has a very definite delivery date. Because after Y2K, no one's really going to want your services. At least not for a very long time after Y2K. But yeah, interesting times. Again, there was absolutely an issue. It was absolutely going to cause problems. There were transport systems, accountants, stockbrokers, finance, banking, logistics, all of it would have been affected, absolutely affected. I saw the code, I saw the data. It was definitely going to be affected if nobody had done anything. The whole planes falling out the sky thing, not sure. I don't know enough about how the planes' navigation systems work to say that for definite. But I mean, there would have been. I know from other people that air traffic control systems certainly would have been affected as well. What that would have caused, I can't say. But I will say it was definitely an issue. And anyone that says, it didn't happen, there was a nothing. Yeah, they've misunderstood the difference between there being a problem and the problem being fixed. There's a big gap. Just because you fix a problem doesn't mean it was never going to happen. You know, if you fix a problem before it happens, then you fix a problem before it happens. It was going to happen, and you stopped it. And we had, like I say, thousands of developers around the world fixing that issue for companies, and we all did a bloody good job, I would say. Developers never get kind of much credit for what they achieve, but there's quite a lot of the world that would not work quite as well as it does without. There's a lot of the world that will work worse. That would be better maybe, or certain ones of us, ones that have got some kind of morals, which is always a problem, isn't it? A lot of developers the morals can be bought quite easily. I would say naming not pointing anyone out in particular, but I think from the beginning you already know the ones I mean. But yeah, I would say on the whole, we did good. We tend to do good, mostly. And yeah, Y2K was a real problem. And again, anyone that tells you otherwise is an idiot. Anyhow, thanks again for listening to just warble on about nonsense, as I always do. These will get more structured, probably. I mean, when we actually get time to get somebody on and talk, that will be structured. I mean, it will be a definite topic that is talked about, and so it will by definition be more structured. But I kind of also like doing these ones, which are just random stuff I think about at the time to talk about. Hopefully you do too. Anyhow, if you aren't subscribed to Reinfuse, please do so. There will be more videos. It's again, real life just gets in the way. But anyhow, thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please hit like if you can. If you really like this podcast, then please subscribe. If you didn't like this podcast, then comment and let us know why. See you next time.